Good afternoon, and why not say good evening for those who will be watching us later on. Welcome to this amazing moment that we have together here at the SSB, still online, but sharing and our enlighten ourselves together and sharing a good moment so that we can continue. And today, um, Daniel will explain to us the idea of perseverance. But we're not there yet. Before we pass the word to Daniel and we really kickstart everything, let us take a moment to read a passage of the book Happy Life so we can acclimate ourselves with one another as well as with the mentors of the SSB in the environment where we are as well. We ask that you take your time to really um, come to this moment and partake with this moment. Even though we are home, it's important that we really put everything aside. I know there are perhaps dishes on the sink. There are things that we have to attend. Sometimes family members that we have to call or say, whatever it is. Let us make this our moment. If you have come thus far, let us make this truly our moment. And Joanna De Angelis says the following. Look at this. We only appreciate the most important things in life when they have gone or we have lost them. Most of the time, people live like automatons and do not appreciate these inestimable divine resources: health, sleep, intelligence, a good digestion, breathing, the organs and the senses, movement, are treasures placed by God at your service, and you do not realize how glorious they are, using them up with abandon to acquire other goods that are secondary. Stop and consider the meaning of each of these gifts and protect them from the factors that consume them. It is message 63 on the Earth version of the book. It's page 76. I'll keep this on the side if you wish to for me to go ahead and share with you again. You can certainly text us or send a message as we go and discuss later on the questions and the messages. On this note, let us connect with one another in a moment of prayer. You may close your eyes, but let us all find a comfortable but straight position where we can truly connect with one another. Let us pray that each one of us can receive from this moment the enlightenment that we would like to receive, that we came here for. Let us go back to the purpose of sitting in front of the computer right now. It's not just to make this moment an automatic moment, but also to really dive into the message, into the teachings that will be shared with us. We pray that each one of us can exercise as well the teachings that we are about to receive, that we can receive the treatment afterwards as we drink the water after this moment, as we go on with our lives. And we also extend our prayers to our brothers and sisters who could not be here with us right now, who is in need of a content of life like this, but they do not know how to begin, where to find such a content. Let us send our good vibrations to them and wish them well. And we ask, dear Lord, that you illuminate the mind and heart of our dear friend Daniel Santos, who will conduct this talk today, starting the month of August with our hearts full of joy here with one another, thankful for our presence and you being right next to us. Thank you, and so be it. And as we were saying earlier, today Daniel will be kickstarting the month of August. It's hard to believe that we're already in August. Not yet in the home stretch of the year, but we already passed the half mark, right? And today Daniel will be talking to us about persevering always, right? Daniel, it's a good topic that it reminds us, as we have put on the subtitles of the talk and whatnot, on how the Olympians, right? They get to be an Olympian, right? Somebody who goes to the Olympics, they work very hard, and it's necessary to have a lot of perseverance.
Exactly. You said right, Leo. And I can't believe we are already in August, right? I mean, like, pretty soon we're gonna be like 2022, right?
Yes.
So let me share my slide here. Thank you, Leo. Um, so this is the topic that we have uh, pretty much proposed for today. Is a kind of a conversation, is a reflection about, all of us, our lives, the life in this planet. And as Leo has mentioned, we kind of were inspired in the current events that is happening in the sport arena, um, the Summer Olympics Games that is happening in Japan. And by watching some of those competitions, we felt that sometime to reach the higher podium to get the gold medal, those athletes they need to go to a very intensive training, and also make sure that they never felt discouraged, because otherwise they're not going to be able to make that mark, right? There is a limit to be qualified to participate on those games. So um, by watching some of those competition, we always ask ourselves, like, okay, so what happened after you training for 3 years or 4 years? This time took almost 5 years because of the pandemic, and then you go over there, you spend 3 weeks. Probably you get the gold medal or no medals. So what happened after? So do you go home and feel nostalgic? Do you go home, you'll decide to continue the training for the next um, um, Olympic Games that will happen 4 years later? This time is going to be 3 years from now, right? So, and how about those that is their last participation, that has been participating for, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and now their age is not yet um, they are not, they're old, so they are not, their body is not more strong to continue the competition because they could not cope with the youngest one. So we all think about all these possibilities that happen. So we are talking about just a very side of life that we human being has, and the goal that we put ourselves to achieve. So some of those competition, they are very it's not only competing, but also become very emotional, because some of them were able to achieve the end goal but also not. So we see all kinds of emotion in those games, and this make us reflect about, our journey to perfection, right? So how many struggles and hard work we have to do it to become a better person. So the purpose of this conversation is pretty much to look back in what we learn in Spiritism and how we learn with the athletes, and try to put this in our daily life. Because some of us, maybe we are not in um, the robbing to practice the sport, but we have end goal to our life, that is to achieve perfection, that is to be happy, right? We are looking for happiness all the time. We are trying to balance our life. We're trying to make sure that our health is in check, our financial aspect as well, relationship. But we know that to achieve that situation is not something easy. We need to be in this stage of perseverance, persevering always, right? It seems that when we achieve something, we have an end goal. Now we have to start all over again to achieve another goals. And in spiritism, pretty much we learn about how we can take advantage of adversity and help in our improvement as a human beings, right? And if each one of us make our own improvement, so society is a consequence of the improvements of every individual that belongs to that particular society. So to help reflect upon this topic, persevering always, so I would like to bring to you, start with this message from the book Live Spring. And let me put this a little bit bigger here so you can see it. Um, where Francisco Cândido Xavier, the mediums, through the Spirit Manual, this is the lesson number 61, entitled Never Give Up. And I think the message is a good start for us to reflect upon our own life, our struggles, which kind of competition we are in bed with, we kind of like, let's say, struggles or difficulty we are facing in our life, and how to cope and how to understand um, and take advantage of those adversity to better ourselves. So pretty much Emmanuel starts from taking this passage from Luke 18, chapter 1. Always pray and never give up. Of course, is a quote from um, the gospel. And Emmanuel starts by saying, do not let external problems, including those involving your own body, render you incapable of working your self-elimination. So he already starts saying, okay, external problem is those that, is not generate inside of you, but are also those that include the ones that relate to our health, right? The health of our body, render you incapable of working in your self-illumination. So the key here is self-illumination. What is this self-illumination that Emmanuel is talking about? Well, it's the well-being that we are all looking for, right? It's the self-illumination, it's the realization that we are not only the physical body, we are much more than our physical body. And then he continues by saying, as long as you are living on a plane of practice such as the earth, you will continue to be confronted with problems and suffering. So, okay, no one can be spared of suffering problem in this planet, right? A lesson learned is something that leads to more lessons. So once we learn a lesson, once we master a problem or a suffering, it means that that will life will present to us a new challenge. So because now we kind of graduate from one experience to others, but now we are a little bit more stronger, right? Behind the mystery solved lies other mysteries. So life is a mystery, it's a mystery that sometimes we think that we know, but when we when realize we less expected, so we are faced with a new situation. And this we can apply for all kind of situation, like as we mentioned, health, financial problem, relationship problem, things that pertains to the human evolution. The purpose of a school is none other than teaching, practicing, and improving. Straight to the point, right? We go to school um, to um, um, to learn, you know, and to improve, right? So in this context here, I'm gonna say, in another word between the lines, it's talking about our planet, and we are a student in the school that we call planet Earth. Thus, be filled with enthusiasm and goodwill in every situation. Here is a challenge, right? Because when he says goodwill in every situation, like feel enthusiasm, this enthusiastic spirit that he is asking us to do, inviting us to do, and also have goodwill in every situation becomes something that is not easy, right? And sometimes we cry, right? And that show how vulnerable we are as a human being and how in need we are to have one another, right? So um, then he continued, you were placed, you mean we were placed amidst 1,000 strange obstacles, so that by overcoming outer difficulties, you may learn to surpass your inner limitations. So we all have limitation, right? But the purpose of the, I would say, not the purpose, these limitations doesn't mean that we should be stuck on that particular limitation. We should not tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm this way. I'm not gonna, who am I? I'm not gonna, achieve this." We can recognize that we have limitation, but the idea is to surpass these limitations, to overcoming this limitation. We all have limitation, even from the more intelligent person in this planet to the one that is not considered so intelligent. So we have limitation. The difference is that those that have limitation, they recognize the limitation, they work to overcome that limitation. And the message continue, but I'm not going to go through the message because we have other to the end of the message because we have other reflection to do regards to this topic, persevering always. So one thing that before we move that we highlight here is this sentence. We we should always remember that we are in a planet of trial and expiation, that we are not the one that God forgot, right? That our neighbor is not so privileged as we think, because the our neighborhood or our friends may not have the problem that we have, but they have other problems that probably we are not um, experience the problem for our neighbors uh, are facing. So at the end of the day, we are all in this um, probably in this toward in the same river, probably in a different boat. I don't want to say that we are in the same boat, but we are in different boat, but you know, in the same river, in the same place, going towards the same direction, right? So let us keep this in mind. The idea of this reflection is for us to feel some kind of consolation that sometime when we are facing uh, problem or difficulties, that feeling of we are forgotten sometimes become greater than the feeling that, look, it's not easy, but um, I know that I'm not alone in this journey. All right. So one thing that we always ask, especially when we are going to this situation, is that why I have to go through this? What is the purpose? Why God has allowed this to happen for those that believe in God, right? For those that doesn't believe in God, so they don't believe in God, so they don't blame God. We're gonna blame other, um, probably other people, the government, or whatever. So um, it's because we are complex beings. Our life is kind of complex in the sense that we are not here as our first time. It's not the first day in school. So we have been here other times. In Spiritism, one of the principle of Spiritism and all the philosophers is that we have lived before. We have many lives, right? And since we come to the new life, we have what we call the reincarnatory plan. So the reincarnatory plan or reincarnation plan um, is something that is not And this in itself would be like another um, talk that we do, but there is talks in our YouTube channel only about reincarnation and the process of the process of reincarnating and come back many times and question. So did I ask to go to this situation? Did I ask to be born in this family? um am I supposed to marry this person? Am I supposed to, all these questions we learn in the spiritual literature with a lot of cases that has shown that, sometimes we participate on this plan, as we put here in this um, slide, like as if we have our mentors, like kind of presenting to us plans that will help us um, to progress, right? Of course, there is other reincarnation that we don't have the participation in. And why is that, Daniel? It's because depending of the level or the maturity of the spirit of ourselves in this planet, we may participate or not in the process of reincarnation. We may choose or not choose, so they can choose for us what is the best for us. It's the same way when we have our children, so they don't go and choose which school they're going to go. The parent is the one that will go and register the children in this or that school, because the parent is supposed to know better which school is more appropriate to their children. So in this case of the reincarnatory plan, so whatever is happening to us, there is two components. There is those that it is something that we need to go through because we kind of agreed, even if we don't remember. And there is others that we create because it's based on our free will. Okay, so this plan is not like set in stone. It's probability. There is some that we may face because it's now a consequence of a act or event that was done before, so we need to make amendment with that situation. Others is product can be product of our free will, right? Our choices in this lifetime. So it's just for us to understand. So the big question, as we put over, the big question is that one. So why are we continue to be confronted with problem and suffering? Why? And we only ask this question when we are in the middle of the situation, when we are in the middle of the suffering, right? Because if everything is okay in our life is beautiful, right? And sometimes we may we may um, we may put ourselves in a situation that we don't want to see the problem, right? We think that we kind of like mask, we put under the rug, right? And we may look at people and say, oh, this person is very happy, this person doesn't have any problem. um, we don't know, because uh, we we are not perfect yet. So we are very, as Joanna Jangela always mentioned in her books, we present this persona that is not truly what we are, right? So um, everyone, as we read in the message, never give up, has that is incarnated in this planet is going to some kind of problem or suffering. You may say, oh, I don't have problem, I'm not suffering, everything is well, my health is well, temporary, maybe, but we never achieve that 100% of peace of mind. Why? And here's why we it's very difficult for us to say that we are not a part of the problem, or we don't have in a situation of self, is because we are connected with other people, right? For example, I may feel that I have a good job, I have titles, I have good income, I have great health, I don't have any physical problem, um, but it's not a guarantee that people that surround you or people that you love, your friends that you is very dear to you, which was, is in the same situation. So by default, if people that we are connected with somehow is going to suffer a different situation, if you have that connection, we kind of resemble also that sadness inside of us, even if we don't want to see that, right? So in that way, we may have those temporary period of our lives that we feel that we don't have any problem, but it's just an illusion, because if we go to a workplace, you may have co-workers that is going to a very difficult situation. Now, the question here is how empathetic you are, how sympathetic you are. So that's another story, right? You may not want to, but also you cannot say that you are immersed in this energy field, in this environment of there is other people suffering. You may decide not to pay attention on that, but that doesn't put you in a perfect place or environment of no problem and no suffering, right? And here's something: if today you are not facing a problem or suffering, you have no certainty that tomorrow that problem suffering will not knock in your door, right? So the purpose is for us always to be open to support one another and to do the best that we can. Because if tomorrow the suffering or the problem reaches, so we may have the understand and the support of others, right? So in the Spirit's book in question 909, 909, so we learn about, good and evil. And one of the things that because we are not perfect, we have this evil inside. The evil here is not, you say, I'm not evil. It's the absence of doing, is the absence of goodness. We may label ourselves, I'm a good person. Well, who am I to say we are not? We may display some moment of good person, right? But we are not good all the time. The same way we are not bad all the time. We have this, still lack of experience, lack of practice good all the time inside of us. And by default, we may say that we still have some evil inside of us. Even if we don't go over there and practice that action, but sometimes our thoughts is not according to God's laws, right? Especially when we are driving in the highway sometime. Okay, so what is the question here that Allan Kardec has asked the spirit, the noble spirit? He's asked about, could humans always overcome their evil tendency through their own effort? Okay, so forget about help from outside, external help. So, and we have brought this question here before in a couple of our presentations. And the question here is to see, okay, why we are still going to suffering, why we still have problem. And Kardec asked this question, you know. So he already recognized that we are not 100% good, but he also is interested to know if we can, overcome these things, these negative feelings that sometimes we have with your own effort without, expecting, some external force come in and fix things for us. The answer is very interesting. So the good spirit answer, yes. And sometimes with very little effort. What they lack, we lack, is willpower. How few of you make such an effort, however? So we highlight two things here: effort, and here they say very little, and willpower. This is telling us all. So because of our free will, because of our freedom, the law of freedom, I may just say, I don't want to work on this. I don't want to put time on this, you know. So, but here the Spirit will say, look, if you just make a very little effort, you know, and have a very little willpower, so we may become a better person, you know. We may start to see the other individual as a uh, child of God, you know, because from the moment we see one another as, you know, not brother and sister, then we are pretty much telling that that person is not, you know, product of the creation, right? So it's a reflection that we are making. So very little effort we need to put it in to help willpower. What is willpower? You know, what is willpower? Or goodwill, you know? So it's that, okay, so there is something that I need to do it. So we put our mind and we do it, right? And and because of God has also granted us the free will, we have the choice not to do it. And we see nowadays, especially the moment that we are living in this planet, you know, very polarized, you know, because people is using, you know, their freedom of expression to do or not to do certain thing. And sometimes this can become dangerous because if I decide to use, you know, my freedom not to do things that will help the community, I might be um, put myself in a different category that is not freedom but selfishness, I would say, because we are not thinking about others, we are thinking only about yourself, right? But this can be another topic to discuss. So if we look life here in our planet, life in according to spiritism, the spirits, the United Spirit as well, the books of the codification, they bring different perspective in how we should see our life, okay, and also how we should see the suffering that we go in this life, right? So if we look at our life, we can look at our life for at least two different aspects, you know, the present life. So right now, our life right now, that's the way we see it, right? But the present life is a sum of consequence of events that can be positive event or negative event from, you know, from the past or from the current life, right? So just to understand, so what we are today is a sum of things that we have cultivating or the decision that we have made in past life. So what we are today is right now is a consequence of all these events that is part of choice that we made, but also is a collective change because we are embedded in what society also determined to us, determined toward our well-being in the society, right? So, and whatever we are doing today will help to um, uh, will pretty much tell us how our future is going to be, right? So this is pretty much something that we all know. But when we go to the situation, we because we are in the present, we not go too much to the past to understand, to reflect. So pretty much we are in this like, you know, situation that happened to us can be a consequence of the past, but also can be consequence of the present, right? So, and sometimes if we are living too much in the future, we create what we call anxiety, right? We are worried about what's happened, but it didn't happen yet. So, and then we forget to live in the present, you know. So, if the opposite, if we are just like living the past, and sometimes this can be um, not clear in our mind because it's sometimes embedding our subconscious. Yeah. So may we may we may experience some degree of depression, you know, probably because we are attached to something that we probably even don't know because it was not clear in our mind. And sometimes the feeling, the fantasy feeling, like if I have not come to this place, if I have not married, so this put us in a state of depression, not the clinical depression here, but that nostalgic, that feeling that is not helping us to live the present and to make good decisions in the present. So this can be a little bit dangerous. So that's why many people sometimes they felt stuck because they are either living this two time in the future, too much in the future, generate anxiety, or too much in the past, like kind of like, you know, if I have done, if I have not done, if I have done. So that doesn't help much, right? Because then we forget to address the problem in the current life. Daniel, this is very complex. Nobody said that it's going to be simple, right? Life is not simple. But we are just bring here what we have learned, especially in the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, when we learn about uh, uh, present and past causes of suffering, right? So in order to us to understand a little bit this mechanism, for example, if we look at the present cause of our lives, so we have situations that is a consequence of our personal choice. But also, since we are living in a society, in living a family, and come from this or that culture, that also can be impact, right? So result from so individual like suffering a problem, the individual problem is pretty much result from the misuse of free will sometimes, right? If we look at just the present cause here, the present life, you know. Um, and sometimes we may justify, you know, we may like point finger and because we don't want to face the real situation. And when we talk about this subject, we are talking here and including myself about human race, right? The humanity in this planet. So, but also there is some suffering or problem that is the consequence of others' free will. You know, we put the example here: manpower, politician. You know, when we are in the position to make decisions. So when you are in a, you know, a CEO of a company, when you oversee other people's life, uh, quote unquote. So whatever decision we make, you may affect or cause problem to those individuals. So to kind of like help us to understand this, so our individual problem will affect the social aspect, and the social aspect also can come back and affect our life as well. So we have discussed this before in other presentation, but this is for us to take responsibility, individual responsibility, but also as a society, collective responsibility. So we are not like outside of the swimming pool. We are all inside of a swimming pool. Whatever little rip in the water we do in the corner of the pool will somehow affect us and vice versa, right? So whatever is happening in another country, or whatever is happening in another state, at some point, at some degree, even if this is very tiny, 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 we are contributing to that, and also we are affected to that throughout from that situation, even if we don't want to see it. Why? Because we are all interconnected, interconnected economically speaking, right? Interconnected in terms of communication. Even if we are inside of our house, giving some audience to this or that outlet, news, that will help us to generate thoughts, positive or negative. And that is one of the things that in spiritualism, I will call our attention, what kind of thought we are emitting, right? So that will somehow help us individually to, working our problems, and also contribute for the society as well, for the betterment of the society. So going back to the Spirit's book, in the question 939, Kardec asks, why are the suffering social classes more numerous than the fortunate ones? So pretty much, Kardec want to know why the ones that, they're in the bottom of the social class is majority one, is the majority ones. And those that has more material and property, it seems they are not suffering, right? So, and the United Spirit answer, no one is perfectly happy. Those who consider themselves fortunate often hide poignant afflictions. Suffering is everywhere. However, in response to your thought, I will say that the class you call suffering are more numerous because the earth is a place of expiation. When humankind have finally transformed it into the habitat of goodness and of good spirits, men and women will no longer be unhappy in this world, which will then be a terrestrial paradise for them. So, straight to the point, as we have mentioned at the beginning, no one is perfectly happy. We may have those, relative happiness, right? So all of us has experienced moment of happiness, like that moment that we can't, is we feel good, and vice versa. But perfectly happy means happy all the time, and that is something that living this planet, being in this school that we call Earth, is not possible yet. As he mentioned, earth is a place of expiation or atonement. It's a place that, is a school that is not a vocation school. It's not a place that we go to have fun. It's not a place that you go to, to just relax. It's a place that we come to work, to be educated, and as well to, make amendment, right? So, in this book that I believe is not in English yet, um, Religion of the Spirits, Religião dos Spirits, is a book that was psychographed by Chico Xavier. There is a message in this book that's very interesting, and I would like to read this message to you because the Spirit Emmanuel, that was the one that brought this message to Franciscan Xavier. He entitled this message, and he invites us to examine our own afflictions. And he starts by saying, to avoid a devastating emotional storm, examine your own affliction daily. Very interesting. To avoid a devastating emotional storm, right? And he says, and he lists some of those afflictions, like he gives names. So it's very interesting because by giving name to those afflictions will help us to situate ourselves in which space and time we are in our life, right? So he says our afflictions are characterized by special types and names. Very interesting because sometimes we cannot name what kind of feeling or affliction or emotional things we are going through, right? Sometimes we just say, I'm so angry, but we don't go deep in the root of the source of that anger, right? So, for example, he says, the affliction of selfishness is called egomania. I hope I pronounced this right. Egomania, right? The affliction of addiction is called delinquency. Addiction here is in general, okay? The affliction of aggression is called anger. He's giving name here to certain afflictions, okay? The affliction of crime is called remorse. So when we feel remorse, is because, and crime here is not the sense that you need to go and have kill someone. It's crime is any action that's against God's law, that's against our peace of our conscience, right? So that's the context of this affliction. The affliction of fanaticism is called intolerance. The affliction of escape is called cowardice. The affliction of envy is called despite. The affliction of thoughtlessness is called foolishness. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but you can read over there in the screen. The affliction of indiscipline is called disorder. The affliction of brutality called violence. The affliction of laziness is called rebelliousness. Very interesting. Because sometimes when you see people all the time complaining, be rebellious, because they don't want to do their homework, right? They they are against those that is trying to do their homework or push them to do their homework. The affliction of vanity is called madness, right? The affliction of careless is called misleading. If you don't care about others, you're going to create story. You're going to misleading people. The affliction of indifference is called discouragement. You know, the affliction of uselessness is called complaint. The affliction of jealousy is called despair. The affliction of impatience is called anxiety. The affliction of stigness is called misery. The affliction of injustice is called cruelty. So, of course, there is more. I believe those is kind of the, you know, uh, a, a type of affliction that will lead to those other state, like, the affliction of aggression, we can call anger. But it's in an affliction. It is a state, an emotional state that we can go through. So, but in living this plan, we all at some point we experience this one of those affliction, right? So here the question is how we manage those situations, and that's why we are here. We are here to identify it and to know how to manage those situations, and in order for us not to create more problem in our lives. Each creature has his or her own affliction, an affliction of domestic, professional, intellectual, and emotional arena. So we all have at some point, depends on the state we are, of the environment, of family, or society. So we are surrounded, we are facing those moments. Health, okay. So and then finally, Emmanuel said, heart joined by the supreme goodness know that coping with small affliction is to avoid the major one in the road of life, and therefore only they, anonymous heroes of everyday struggle, can receive and accumulate in themselves the talent of love and reserved peace by Jesus to earth sufferers. When the divine promise was said on their mountain, blessed are the afflicted. So uh, we have, many of us are living with those affliction, suffering, but let us keep, our mind. Let us try to control that. And as this message starts to say, you know, let us examine daily which kind of feeling we are displaying, and let's try to name those feelings. And if we are living in family or in our workplace, let us know how to address those in order not to cause more problem. If the other side is not open to, to address the problem, so maybe you need to work with time, right? Maybe it's not time yet, right? So it is a invitation for us to really put an effort to learn how to control these emotional uh, emotion events that we all, as a human being, experience pretty much every day in our life, right? So we almost finish here. I would like to bring this quote from Walt Disney. It says, "The flower that blooms in adversity is the rarest and most beautiful of all." So this sentence says it all. This sentence can resume pretty much what we are trying to say here. So we are not here to live in to have a perfect family. Although if you have a perfect family, rest assured that it's temporary, right? You may have a perfect family in one lifetime, but you have no control about the next lifetime, and you don't know how was the previous lifetime, right? So, but the idea is that we are put in a place to exercise, to grow, to work in our betterment, to become a better person. And if we, each one of us, do our part, tomorrow we're gonna build a better society. Even if you feel that you're just the drop in the ocean, but do the best that we can. And if that was the what Mother Teresa had in mind, right? When the reporter asked her about all the work that she was doing, and the report pretty much said that it was like a drop in the ocean. He said, "Yeah, but without that drop in the ocean would not be the same, right? The ocean was already different because of that drop in the ocean." So let us see ourselves as, what can I do to myself, but also by doing this to myself to improve myself, how can this be a reference to the society, or reference to my family, or to my friends, or to my co-workers? So I believe that is the question that we'd like you to leave with you, and always bring this quote: never give up, always pray and never give up. So thank you. I'll bring Leo here so to see if we have some questions to discuss. I guess I have to look at the question here, right, Leo? So,
Yes, Daniel. First of all, thank you for this amazing reminder. And it comes to us in the right time. And I think that even if we were to have this conversation every day, it would be the right time, because who doesn't feel discouraged? Who doesn't feel that we are out of place at times, right? And as you said, it's very hard to be in a position where we things are perfect, relationships are perfect, conditions are perfect. So I'm glad that you touched on this and start this month, with this conversation, utilizing the the Olympics as an example of hard work, and bringing these teachings, because we are in need of it. So I thank you for it. And yes, we do have some questions here. But before, as always, I always like to acknowledge the presence of everyone here. Saying to us, hellos, the amens, and hi everyone, good evening everyone. Antonia, Yasko, Anita, Iracema also with us, Kirsten, and many of us that will be following or be watching this later on. Hello to all of them too. And the first question that we would like to bring comes from Yasko here, when she says, "Exactly when obstacles or limitations struck us, there come opportunities to transcend, and many had succeed better in their self-illumination. How is that? Does the pain slash suffering function as a key to open some kind of window to our deep memory, to consciousness, to self, while decreasing the ego?"
hmm, thank you, Yasko.
Good
Yasko,
question.
always with a good question. Uh, Yasko, there is several way we can see that, right? It's like, I mean, we can say that when a problem strike us, so if that is the first time that problem has struck us, so probably it's gonna take more time for us to solve that problem, right? when we have already been faced that problem before, so it becomes something easy to figure out. It's like when we go to school, right? Uh, so probably the first time equation is presented to us, we may take hours and hours to solve that equation. But once we learn the mechanism, once we learn how to put the numbers together, so then when the next equation comes, so we spend less time. So the same thing we can apply to our struggles, right? Suffering. Some people, they may take their whole life to solve that situation, or not solving. Maybe they go to the spiritual plane and have to reincarnate many lives to learn how to deal with that situation. Well, regards to the pain, the intensity of the suffering, not necessarily the intensity of the suffering will make the person change overnight. Like, like, okay, maybe it's not painful enough so the person cannot change. I believe that is a combination of factors. One of like, probably, even if the pain was very strong, but if it is the same time that the person faced that event, so may take longer to solve, right? And by bring Jesus in the teachings by Jesus, he always said that God, the Father, never put a burden heavy than our shoulder. I We have exactly what is needed for us to move to the next phase. Now, what make or delay the learning is our free will, is our willpower, is the effort that we need to bring to solve that situation. And many people say, I don't want to do this right now. They have all the elements to deal with the situation, but the person may choose not to deal with that situation. And, before God's law, we are allowed to, because the spirit has the free will to not to work themselves. They're not gonna regret, right? But they can stay in that stuck in that situation for as long as they he or she want to. So what the pain that was gonna cause is that what happened is the same thing when we go to school. We may decide not to study to take the test or to pass the next grade. But from the moment we see that our classmate is passing to the next grade, we don't feel good, right? Those that feel behind, if you ask those that have to repeat grades after grade, they don't feel good about themselves. It's a suffering at some point. So, but the system is going to give you opportunity to you to move on, to, you know, to redo the test. And this system that we call reincarnation, for example, is the key that will help us to move um, ahead, if you want, right? I don't know if my answer, Leo, you can jump in and help on the clarification of her question.
Yes, and I think your answer well, Daniel. But what I'd like to add, it's already implicit in the actual message that or question that she brought. We have the ability to learn in different ways, right? In the as we learn with Spiritism, uh, the, there are the two way the two roads, not two way, two roads that we can learn through is that either through love or through pain, right? In sometimes when I see the individuals who are going through a harsh trial, right, or a difficult moment, and we have seen this. I believe there is a case, or I'm certain that there is a case on the book Action and Reaction, where the individual goes through such a tough moment, but they go through with such a resignation, right? That is like already inside of them, right? They're already able to indirectly identify that this is something not new that needs to be actually taken care of, right? A situation with someone or a condition that is going through or not, he or she is going through. So yeah, the pain can activate situation within us. But the flip side of that is also true, that we have to be careful. and where certain in certain cases, if we don't take care of it, as Emmanuel says on the last message that you brought to us, that it's we will just continue to go into the depths of our own let's say issues that we have inside of us, and it's just going to make it worse. So we have to take care of it. We have to utilize this in both ways. What I'm trying to say is that why get to the harsh moments of our lives that we have to deal with it when we can try to look what I'm saying, try to actually take care of it when the problem is still small, right? We're not perfect. We agree with that. But at the same time, do we want to let it escalate to a significant level that it's going to be very hard to deal with it later on? Hopefully not. That's the idea, and it is a great question. The
Yes, yes.
the next question that we have here, by Kirsten, when she says, what's the best way to remain motivated and persevere when everything you feel tells you to give up?
Hmm. Surround yourself with good people that can, help to motivate you. If you feel that you're not motivated, the worst scenario is like, have to hang out with people that's not motivated. So you both, so this is one thing. Okay, of course we can name here several other, steps. Watch good movies, read good books, do therapy, go to the gym. So all these things is helpful, right? Anything that you do to help to uh, help you to motivate yourself is good. Also, I mean, make sure that you also surround yourself with a community, with people that will kind of help to because if you're not motivated, so what's happened? For example, let's bring the Olympics, the Olympics games now. So those athletes that are they're competing, they have a team behind them, right? That motivates them. You have to do it. This. You have to run. Do again, do again, do again. So it's a positive reinforcement that sometimes we cannot drive that enforcement from inside. We need to have this external help to push us. That's what's the main thing we are in society, right? Um, but also there is a very important thing here. That is the answer from the Spirit's book that we read. Um, we can have all the external help, the best coach, the best circle of friends, positive friends. We can have probably medication that help you to boost your serotonin, right? So you can have all this, but at the end of the day, there's a homework we need to do it. That is find within us the issues that is hold us or put us create this lack of motivation. And that is what Joanna Judge and this Spiritism always bring to us. And there is a question in the Spirit's book. We need to know thyself. We need to identify what inside of us and do this inner journey is really another suffering, right? Because facing ourselves, facing our demos, our habit, bad habit, is not fun, you know. And it's easy for us just to come and say, "Oh, I feel so dismotivated. I'm not motivated. I'm so, I don't want to do it." I mean, if we just do a little effort, right? As you said, just little effort and a little bit of willpower, we should like always, let's not plan ourselves for the big task. Let's do the small one. We do the small one today. Today I don't want to wake. If you have to wake up every day at 8 o'clock a.m., but you always get up at 10 or 11, so make a plan. Okay, so but don't do this like abruptly, right? You need to do small change, small change. And when we talk about um, things that is already enrooted in us from many lifetimes, probably one lifetime is not going to be enough for us to overcome that. Probably we're going to need more lifetimes, right? But the moment that we become aware that we have some issues, and that's the limitation we discussed before in the message never give up, we have those limitations, you know. And let's not set ourselves to do big things, because if we don't feel that we can, let's do the small one. It's small thing. It's like when you run, okay? So let's not like, okay, I'm gonna think 5K. Don't do that if you are not a runner. Just say, okay, today I'm just gonna run like 300 meter, you know, not 5,000, 300 or 100, probably 50 meter, right, Leo? Not
Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah, I got reprimanded once by my doctor for going over 5Ks, and I was complaining about my knee, and he's like, well, wait a minute, were you trying to do, you know did you train to get to the five before before anything else? He's like, I was like, no, I just got up one day, I said I'm gonna run 5 miles. I did, well, actually it was more than five, and I got to run, quite a bit. And then the next day I paid the price. Well, he said, well, next time just take little by little, right? But something that you said, Daniel, was really interesting. The surrounding ourselves, with people who is positive, the opposite of ourselves, or the way we are connected, or wired at the time, due to the situation, due to the condition that we're living, and all that. But I also would like to challenge that in a good way. And hear me out. There are the people who actually is feeling just like we are, and I would say in a not more in a destructive condition, meaning they're sad, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to run even the first mile. But there are also people just like us that are going through the same issues, but or similar issues, that they have a drive inside of them to run that first mile, run the second mile, get to the 10 miles, since we're talking about strategies here. And one of the things that I've been learning is, look, number one, when we're going through a situation, I'm not going through in the planet Earth right now, going through that situation alone. Suffering knocks on everyone's door, and I think it's important for us to also look up for groups of people that are going through the same thing, that who wants to change, and perhaps will benefit from our condition, to say, here's my hand, I understand what you're going through, right? And I would like to help. The minimal help sometimes could be just to listen to the person, right? Complaining about the situation or going through the situation, that them themselves can actually find a solution within themselves, if I can make myself, well explained there. But I think that is also important for us to, if we feel that we are in that condition, that we can help, because not everybody is at that moment. They can then say, you know what, let's join forces, let's join hands, and try to get out of this together. So I think that is
Mm,
good, because it will also allow us to be charitable, and we know
yes,
through charity is the best way that we'll go forward. So I
yes.
think this is very important. I like what you
And
said, because
and
sometimes it's like,
kissing just put exactly what you said here. And they said, yes, Leo, you are referring to support groups where there are groups of your
yes.
peers who are enduring similar issue as you, and that's true. I think that's a good reminder, Leo, and in
Hmm.
case. And but one thing is like, we need to make sure that those group also is looking for solution. Okay, even if we don't have a solution, right?
Definitely, it's important for
Because
us to.
yeah, because sometimes what happens is that you are in a group that is just like reinforce the behavior of not doing nothing, right?
Exactly, yeah, you got to be
And
careful.
then becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. So we need to also pay attention on that, because sometimes this can be very subliminal things, right? So I like this friend of mine because he can listen to me, but he doesn't offer any like things that will help us, because the person empathize or have going to the same situation. But then if you keep like hanging out with that person and see that solution is not be presented, can become dangerous because you can stay in that same symbiotic environment that we go nowhere, like you and the group, and vice versa, right? So that's very important. Even like to look for, it's like doctor, right? It's like psychologist. Like you go to a doctor, and sometimes there is no chemistry, there is no connection. The idea, probably the doctor wanted to help you, but you didn't felt like. And if you're not being getting better, from that health professional, you're gonna look for others, right? So I think it would be the same. What else?
No, yeah,
Um,
and Kirsten put another comment here. Well, sometimes it's not about finding a solution at first. Sometimes we just need to breathe and get validation that it's okay to feel what we feel, facing your shadows, and then begin the journey of self healing. That is true. That is very true.
Perfect.
And
But I have something to add on that. For how long?
yeah, no, it's true.
Okay. So we need also to pay attention. That's fine. I mean, we need just to go, and but we don't want it to be the idea that we learn in spiritualism. We don't want it to be in that mode to always venting, always complaining, always. No, the idea is to one day to say, okay, there is a problem. Identify. Daniel, you look so technical now. But that's the idea. When we learn with those that has been ahead, they don't have time to they just say, okay, it's not easy, but let's move on. Right? Like all Disney always says, like, if the first step to start doing, right? So it is good, and I validate, that we should surround with people that help us to decompress, right, Leo? We need to decompress. We need to put it out. But it's going to reach a time that we should be able to, you know, reach that moment if the support group is not there, right?
That is true. And what the remedy for each of us will be different. It's so much so as time, and she's referring to time on her next comment here, that time is very different for us. And I have actually come to situations on talking about my feelings, talking about other feelings as well, and I like to say that I take some time before I move on, compared to other people. But if you think about it, there are people that it takes even longer than I do, and depending on such as you. And I think this is where we find the beauty, right? Because I would like to go back to the message that you brought, Daniel, from Emmanuel, that when are we being proactive or reactive, right? Because one thing leads to others, right? Or in the condition that we are right now, we're trying to rescue a lot from the past, especially when we learn through spiritism that what we're going through right now is just a consequence of the things that we have faced in the past, or to be more responsible here with this idea of the things that we have done in the past. So my point is, where should we be proactive? Where's the moment? For example, the you brought many. Emmanuel brings several of the cases here. Several feelings or conditions that we are right now. Where's the moment that we say stop and think, or how do we do that? I mean, what's the idea that what practical way do you think we can actually practice this, that you identify something that can lead you to a worse situation?
Yeah. Before I make a comment on your question, Leo. So Kirsten is right, and I think we are all on the same page in the sense of time. Yes, yeah. Each one of us has their own time. Each one of us, and that's fine. That's what is in the divine laws. So we can take the whole life and not wanted to work on that. We just wanted to stay. That's perfect, fine. But the idea from Jesus is like make amendment with your enemy when we are walk with that person. So Jesus didn't mention to us, look, you need to, take your own time. So he never lied to us. Like, of course, this comment that I make is a comment related to relationship, okay? That if we decide that we have enemy, decide to have. So that was Jesus said to us. It's not me. The lesson not my make amends when we are still with that person. Like, okay, if we have problem in our family, trying to do that in that lifetime. Maybe later someone is gonna move, and then you still gonna have to deal with that situation. So it is very complex because we are just giving an example. There is multiple situation. There is other situation that maybe one lifetime is not enough. Maybe you have to spend, centuries, and we see this in the spiritual literature that individuals decide that because the person could not deal with their emotional storm, then they decide to go and make justice with their hands, or just decide to. I mean, the book Heaven and Hell, the book Liberation, describe this very well. And when we look at close in those spirit, those individuals, it's like emotional storm that they had. They didn't give that time to work on it, right? And then it becomes something healed. And this can impact us, our life, for many and many reincarnations. And it's true, like we should not put time. I agree with Casey on that. But the thing is, like, if you can work this as soon as you can, better and faster you're gonna, move in your evolution. At the end of the day, it's not about, the society, it's not about your family, your daughter, your husband, it's about yourself. It's about we are responsible for ourselves, right? How is the speed we put in to become a better person, to understand all our problems. So we can spend a long time here talking about this subject. We don't have like the silver bullet, right, Leo? We don't have the we are just reflecting here in this thing that is very complex, and sometimes very personal, in a sense that what happened to me is not necessarily the same thing that happened to my neighborhood, my family member, and vice versa. And the way we are perceiving the situation is different because we are in different level of evolution. At the end of the day, all those events and experience that we are living has one single objective: to help us to become a better person, right? And we all gonna one day, reach that level. In our point of view, all this that we are discussing here is a struggle and problem. In the divine point of view, all this thing that we are going is just educational process. Simple as that. Educational process. We are responsible, we are, invited, and we make decision, we make choices, and then there is consequence of our decision, there is emotional storm, we need to decompress, we need to have one another, we need to, pray. So all this is part of this equation to help us to move. If we think that this is good that we feel that we have problem, because if you tell yourself I have no problem, it's because there is something wrong. Because technically, in the level that we all have to have this thing that make us to move forward, to find ourselves, right? I didn't see the chat over there. So, is there any other question?
Well, just a couple comments from Kirsten here, acknowledging what we're saying here in terms of make amendment while we are still on the road with your brother. Perfect. It's a paradox, right? The sooner we face our pain, the sooner we can begin our road to recovery. It's also incredibly difficult, but so worth it. And then she finalizes by saying, personal responsibility, agreed. It is true, Daniel. It's there's a talking about this idea of perseverance, right, or to persevere always, involves many other elements that we need to kind of break it down, especially that every situation is unique, every person is unique. Well, we should say that every person is unique, therefore every situation is unique. So it's important for us to acknowledge all that, and I think that this is what makes us the diversity in not only in terms of people but in terms of situations as well is what makes our lives very spicy, right? That
Yeah.
we learn from one another, that we grow together in the difficult in itself. There is a learning process, as you were saying, that for God, for our Creator, it's not that he or she or it is we want us to suffer, right? Is because we have to go through this process so we can learn, so we can perhaps help others, perhaps create an environment where pain is not going to be there anymore, as we see pain, as we understand pain, and we see, we approach, and sometimes we run from it without dealing with our problems. So it's amazing comments, amazing talk that you brought to us. To start this month, I think that is a good proposal for all of us to finalize this weekend as well. On that note, if you don't have any final comments, I would like to ask you to say the final prayer so we can bid ourselves farewell, and until we meet again.
That's fine. And thank you so much everyone for listening and all the comment as well on the chat. I think this is have this conversation, even repeating the same thing over and over, is healthy, right? So what we brought here today in this discussion, Leo, is not something that we haven't discussed before, right? It's not something new. So, but the fact that we revisit this topic all the time, perseverance, working yourself, you know, what's the lesson the problem says, what happened in our society out there, because it's affecting us. But we always forget to ask the question, like, how much me is affecting the society, the situation. We always say, is the society affecting us? But yeah, that's true, but that individual part is something that we still struggle because of an individual part to take responsibility. We contribute to the collective problem. And all the invitation that we learn with all the great minds in humanity is to work in ourselves, individual, you know, not to wait for my spouse or my children or my boss or my to change, or the government to change, or the president or the representative. No, myself first. If each one of us do our homework, then we can see our society become much better. Until there, we still need to endure a lot of you know, I would say suffering. I wouldn't say suffering like educational process, right? We need to go to this educational process. But I guess we have talked too much. Let me put a slide back here so we can pray. Uh, let's see here. Okay, so let us take this moment. First of all, to acknowledge the presence of our good mentors, our spiritual mentors, personal and also collective mentors, those that are here, participate on this discussion with us. Let us be grateful for their support, their protection, and also for all those that has been working to bring this information so we can start to understand our personal responsibility as well, our issues that need to be resolved, and most of all, the consolation aspect of these messages that we have been discussing today. Thank you, dear Lord, for allowing us to continue meet, even though virtually, and may this moment that we had spent together discussing about our own tribulations can bring some understanding and consolation to those that will watch this recording later. With the guidance, protection, permission, we close our event of today, and so be it. Thank you, Leo.